Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Scott, and this is the Council on Future Conflicts, episode 461. We're talking about the terror going on everywhere in New Orleans, Vegas, and all that is around it. So, we know you're here today to hear what we think about this because this potentially could be part of something that we've been talking quite a bit about ever since the election, essentially. That something is going to happen, either manufactured or organic, that could potentially throw a big kink in either delaying the presidential, kind of transition, or throwing us in such turmoil at the beginning of Trump's, and kind of term that he's basically served up with a shit sandwich from day one. So we're going to be talking about the specifics of these events and also everything surrounding it. If we get time, we'll work in some odds and ends later into the show because listen, with something like this, we just need to jump right into it. Just one editorial note: we generally have a 48-hour rule, but we had a good talk amongst the council, both in the chat all day essentially, but then right before the show started. I think this is pretty clear what happened. I think it's a lot of the basic facts about both of these incidents have been established. And so to not talk about it just because of some arbitrary rule is not the right answer. Normally, we have that 48-hour rule in because things are not clear right in the beginning, and people's agendas kind of drive the narrative until the facts come out. But like I said, we've seen a lot of facts out, and I think we got to talk about them, especially considering the potential magnitudes of these. All right, before I go any further, I of course am joined by my esteemed crew of pundits and pirates. uh, Joe Dolio, how you doing, brother?
I am doing well and good all at the same time. It's snowing in Montana, which is about the least surprising thing of the day. Uh, I got out and played around with the blower earlier. We got about 5 inches on the ground already, and a little bit more coming down. But you know what? It has been an entire day of chats and texts and calls and watching what's going on in the world, waiting for the other shoe
Yeah,
to drop. So going to be an interesting 48 hours. So,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of the weather, if we do have time for other topics, I think we got to talk about this natural disaster that they're talking about that may be coming over the weekend with this polar vortex storm.
yeah,
Because it's not a security threat, but it's definitely a threat. So
it is a
preparations
preparedness
need to
threat.
be made.
And
Yeah.
Hunch, shut your lying mouth. We're not encouraging that behavior here. I already spoke to Wanda yesterday about whether or not two more dogs are showing up at my house. The answer is no. So stop it,
Yeah,
Hunch.
absolutely.
Montana with the
Uh,
dog sled team.
Yeah, right.
Also here, the author of Tenure, which drops later this week, or is it the beginning of next week? I guess is when it
Beginning of
drops.
next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Blaine, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. 2025 started out with a bang. If you've been using my bingo cards, Jimmy Carter's already dead. You get to check that off, and you get to check off a terrorist attack in the U.S. So, yeah, the year has really started off good if you're using my bingo cards this year.
Blaine, I've been meaning to kind of talk to you about that. I think that we should add to it and make a 4-pack of CFC bingo cards that you can play at home with it's the CFC at home game, of course, authored by Blaine Pardo. And we could ship that out to members of the chat so that they can
Hey,
play along at home.
hey, yeah, if you haven't followed that tweet that I put up, a lot of people did, and a lot of people have been commenting to me all day that they're marking off these things. They said these are only going to be good for a quarter of the year rather than
Right.
the whole year.
I know,
But
right?
yeah, it's
This is
wild. It's wild, man. Welcome to 2025.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I'd
know
like
the
them to
whole
spread it
meme
out a
this
little
week.
more for us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we need
Uh,
content for you, not all of it in the first week. So
well, you know the meme where you're with the sneaking up on the tiger and getting ready to thump it in the balls, you know, and then with 2025 on the back of the tiger. I think that's starting to live up to its its name. Watcher, how you doing, brother?
Doing well. Don't have much of a voice, but I am here. Um, Boy, it's been a crazy 24 hours.
I want to say thank you to everybody who graciously gave us New Year's Eve off. It was weird. I didn't get the word that Joe wasn't able to show up until right before the show started, and Watchers lost his voice, and I was if I was totally prepared, I might have tried to do the show solo, but I was not totally prepared. You know, I'm doing the whole family thing, so you know how it is when you're doing the family thing. You're kind of unplugged from the world.
yeah,
So
Joe wasn't aware that Joe wasn't going to be there until pretty late either. So
that's what I got. I got the impression, but I like to always assume it's my fault that I didn't get a duly noted earlier message. So I just kind of roll that way. I don't ever. You know, when I ask people on sufferance to show up and do this show, I have a hard time pointing the finger at them, saying, "Why weren't you there?"
yeah,
Oh boy. No, but anyway, I appreciate all the well wishes and happy New Year's greetings from everybody who gladly, except for Anti Commie, of course. Anti Commie over on X said, you know, suck it up and get on and do it solo, and I'm just like, come on, brother, it's New Year's, give me a break here. So anyway, all right, guys, let's turn our attention to the news, shall we? Um, we've got several things to talk about with each one of these. Okay, I'm gonna Joe. I'll let you kind of branch off of this, and Blaine and Watcher, if you guys want to as well, feel free. I'm going to come out and say that I don't think these two incidents are connected.
yeah.
That's
I
my
completely
opinion.
agree. One has all the earmarks of Islamic terror, and one has the earmarks of disgruntled leftist terror, Revcom attack. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's probably accurate. Aside the fact that one
Before we
appears to have
get
been an
started,
actual professional attack, and one appears to have been done by, the Three Stooges.
exactly right. Real quick before we get started, I want to Sean, a good friend of the channel, potentially criminal, for $10 in the YouTube chat says, "Happy New Year to the Future Conflict crew. Sadly, 2025 will bring a blood. What is it? A
Boatloads.
boatloads of content." Yeah, I Joe, I'm always praying that we have nothing to talk about, but I fear that will not be the case for some time to come. Blaine, thoughts?
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to be hip deep in a lot of content. I agree with your stance as well. I don't think these are connected, but I'm also the writer in me kind of hopes they are, you know, because it would make a
Well,
better story. But one is kind of a Teemu / Phantom Fireworks, terrorist attack, and the other
yeah,
one was somebody who really wanted to go kill people.
I'm I'm wondering
Yeah.
about. I don't think they're connected, like Joe said, but I do wonder about some of the connections, and I wonder if there are some instruction manuals that say certain things that maybe they both used in common or cheated off each other's notes, if that makes sense. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that could be true. Yeah. By the way, thank you, Golf21, for being a new member. Appreciate you joining up. If you want to support the channel here in the new year, about three ways to do it. You can either become a member of the channel, like Golf21 has done. It's $5 and it gives you a free super chat essentially per month. If you are a member already, feel free to jump in with that member chat. Today's probably as good a day as any to do it. we'll read it just like we would any super chat. And then the other is a super chat, of course. $10 super chats kind of go to the front of the line, or $10 or greater go to the front of the line. And the final one is really to send those gifted, like our good buddy Hunch, the Dirty Roofer, is always dropping those gifted subs. We appreciate that. It's not necessary, but we appreciate the
We have to stop calling Hunch such a good friend, because he is dangerous to my wallet, because he advised me of a deal he found, and so I said, yeah, go ahead and pick that up for me. So not that good. So,
well, it's you got to give the guy credit. He's working hard for you, Joe. He's not working maybe for you. He's working with you out there in the world.
He needs to advance his plan to buy this bar down the road, because I intend to give him lots of business if he actually buys that bar.
Hey, that's actually that would be awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's in a really good spot. So,
all right. Before we get started, if you are over on X, feel free to share the link out for the show. We've got it. Either the Future Conflict or I will be retweeting it as well. And if you would give us a like, whether you're watching it on YouTube or Rumble, just hit the like button, and it's free, And if you're not subscribed already, then what's going on? Hit the subscribe button. All right, guys, let's jump into the first one here, this New Orleans attack. Now, this is clearly the more serious of the two. And we've got some kind of basic facts here with this story. Now, if you guys have anything that's up to date over this story, let me know, but I'll just kind of go through the summary here. All right, as of right now, we got 10 dead, at least 30 injured.
It's now 15.
And so the nature of the attack was a truck, basically. Is it 15 dead now?
That's what I saw on Fox.
15 dead. And this is a well-known jihadist tactic. It's been well used in Europe and even in some places here in the U.S. Using a vehicle with a crowded street. And this occurred on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. The FBI investigating as a terror attack. The white Ford F-150 truck was rented. ISIS flag was posted on the vehicle. Suspect is confirmed as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar. He's a U.S. citizen from Texas. The suspect opened fire on police and was shot and killed. I believe there were 2 police injured on the scene, is what I remember seeing. Law enforcement is investigating at least 2 potential IEDs planted in the area. Joe, did you say that had been debunked?
I'm sorry, say that again.
2 IEDs planted in the area?
That number is low. I believe the actual number is 5.
Okay.
Including several at the Superdome and some in the immediate area of the attack.
Okay. So, and then the Sugar
Bowl
has been...
The part that was debunked, Scott, was that they had identified a woman and 3 males in videos that they thought were suspects in that. Joe had indicated before the show that part had been debunked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sugar Bowl has been postponed. Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say that what else is interesting is that the Airbnb he had been staying at has burned to the ground. So that's an interesting piece. And since he was already dead when the fire started, he either left a booby trap behind or someone else went and set fire to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Joe, this we're spitballing here on some of this stuff. I mean, just I guess the disclaimer I will use, since we're kind of commenting well inside of our 48-hour rule, is that we're going to be guessing a lot. We're going to be using our educated guesses, kind of putting 2 and 2 together. But this strikes me as something that is organized in a greater manner than just one individual would be able to do. or it's, I mean, that may not prove to be the case, but that's the way this looks to me, Joe. I mean, you'd agree with that, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fast changing things, and that's why we usually wait to 48 hours. But on this one, it's just so important that we needed to jump on in here. So,
To me, the most telling thing is that they declared a state of emergency. And
Right.
that means, if this was a lone wolf type thing and they had a lot of solid evidence that it was a lone wolf, they wouldn't have done that. For them to declare a state of emergency and then move the sugar bowl, I think that's very telling in many respects.
Did they move it?
It's been rescheduled.
Okay, just for I guess tomorrow, is it?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, and there's a lot of other weird little things about this. I don't want to get hung up on this whole, like this assistant special agent in charge of the FBI field office. I mean, anyway, let me just go over the content that she actually put out first, and then we can talk about that as a separate aside.
let me address a couple things in the chat. First of all, the IEDs found in a home in Virginia, completely unrelated. That's actually an ATF overreach. There's actually not much real evidence there, so that's not related to this case at all. And Forging Freedom, if you look at this guy, his dad did not come here from Afghanistan or Pakistan. I would say somewhere in Africa, but not Afghanistan or Pakistan.
Yeah, this guy from what okay, so real quick, this kind of goes to what I was getting ready to read here. So this is information that the FBI put out, that Jabbar is he's 42 years old. He's a U.S. citizen, an Army veteran from Texas, and he is
bet would be
absolutely a
Sudanese
suspected terrorist.
percent.
And they said he did not. Yeah, I don't know. I just from the look at him, it's kind of hard to do much off of a face shot. But Duncan, so the FBI agent was Duncan, stated that the intelligence officials are working to determine Jabbar's potential associations and affiliations. Yeah, we've got some video here. Let's watch. You want to show this video here of the truck going down the street? It's amazing that he didn't hit anybody in this image. Yeah, it's the one right after his picture on that screen. Oh, did you move? You moved on to a different. I don't know if watcher. Are you? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, guys, we're on a delay for me, so apologies. I mean, talk about lucky.
Yeah, I think her hair extensions got the brunt of that for her. So,
well, yeah, and this just goes to show you if you wonder how he killed so many people. I mean, when a truck is going at that speed, plowing into a crowd, it's literally,
Can I give you two pieces of advice related to this? The first thing is, I know it was New Year's Eve and it was New Orleans, but never allow yourself to get so into the partying and the drinking and inebriation that you are not aware of what is going on around you. There are dangerous things that can happen. The other thing is, if you're being pursued by a vehicle, do not run directly down the road like she did. She almost paid for it with her life, the red-haired girl. Get out of the way.
Yeah, go at right angles to the direction of travel, and find something, any kind of a barrier, like always look for a tree or some sort of other sturdy kind of thing that will get between you and whatever is hurtling at you. Let's see here. Writings link New Orleans attack suspect to ISIS. Investigators have uncovered writing suggesting that the New Orleans terror attack was inspired by ISIS. They didn't clarify what writings were found. The evidence combined with the ISIS flag on the truck strengthens links to extremist ideology.
Nothing gets
Now,
by these
Joe,
guys.
you know,
These
we
guys
had,
are crackerjack. I got to tell
I,
you.
well, the sad thing is, Blaine, we're always talking about things that kind of go against the narrative, but the picture leaks that came out of this kind of wrote this analysis all by itself, and it's I'm kind of glad these leaks did come out, because it allows us to kind of in real time assess the accuracy of the information that we're getting put in front of us. So it also doesn't allow them to try to, well, it's a truck that attacked the people, right? Which is something that they've done a lot lately.
I'll remind everyone that ISIS launched an attack much earlier in the year in Minnesota. No, I'm sorry, North Dakota, at the fair, where the guy walked up on the officer investigating the car accident and opened fire on the officer, and
Yeah.
they got in a rather long exchange.
That's right.
That guy was supposed to be attacking the fair. So ISIS is very active.
All right, real quick. It says here that Jabbar was honorably discharged from the army, but he began acting erratically after converting to Islam. This is according to the husband of his ex-wife. He's got 2 daughters who are a mess following the attack, evidently. Marsh, this is the husband of the ex-wife, described his behavior as being all crazy, cutting his hair, leading the family to limit contact with his daughters, which sounds like the right thing. Joe, we had gotten reports that he was just demonstrating erratic and fundamentalist, maybe violent domestic terror signs, but Islamic, signs of radicalism while he
Well, the
was in the
signs were
military.
bad enough that the wife was able to limit his visitation. And
Yep.
she can't just do that on her own. So it would lead me to believe that his radicalization was reported, at least to the courts, through the family courts, and her request to have his visitation reduced. So there is something to that. She would have had to have told the judge that, and he would have had to have agreed. So I would imagine that information should have actually made it into some sort of a police report somewhere.
Well, and the other thing that's disturbing to me, Joe, is this idea that his supervisors in the military were afraid of backlash for either some sort of discrimination complaint when they noted some of his erratic behavior while he was in uniform. So that's a big red flag for me.
Well,
Especially after
absolutely,
the soldiers
especially
of Islam
with the.
attack.
I guess I'm sorry. I know you have a delay. I keep forgetting. Um, Especially
Yeah,
given
it's all right.
the Hasan case, right? After Hasan, we should have put
Right.
all of that aside, right? For those who don't know, Major Nadal Hassan, yeah, exactly, right there, killed a whole lot of people on Fort Hood. Was it Hood? It was Fort Hood, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fort Hood. Yeah.
And again, everyone was afraid to report him, and then he showed up one day with a pistol and shot a whole bunch of people. So it is it's troubling that this behavior continues where we're afraid to report it.
It's not a shock at all. We've been talking about this all along, that the woke infestation of the military has weakened our military's ability to do its primary function. And that's what we're dealing with here. They can't even manage their own people because they're afraid that if they say something, they're going to get labeled something and lose their careers. And we've seen it happen with countless officers and countless enlisted people. And we've got to do a fundamental shakeup within the military in order to straighten that out. It's just not going to clear up because of an incident or two. They won't do it because their officers are still supporting that woke methodology.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. It's costing lives.
It is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Blaine. I mean, here's the thing, right? Ultimately, this is a culture change that didn't happen overnight. This was developed over years, and it was happening even during the first Trump administration. So this is not going to be something that you are going to. I hate to say it, changing culture is like turning a battleship around. It's not going to be something you do quickly, but there are ways to hasten the change. And I think that's making an example of certain leaders who have maybe been reticent to show this sort of initiative in the past. So we'll see where we go with that. But I hope you're right, Blaine. I hope they're able to root some of this out.
Well, you have to approach it that way. You have to reward good behavior and punish bad behavior. I was a organizational change manager for 12 years at Ernst and Young, and that's how you drive change. It's not through training. Training is the actual lowest level of a mechanism that you can throw lever wise to implement change. What you really want to drive is the behavioral change. And this is a behavioral change that is crept into the military and it's now all over the place. And it's going to take a lot to pull it out. And you got to pull it out root and stem. There's just no other way to do it. And I think you're going to have to
Yeah.
fire a lot of officers. It's a Stalin level purge that'll have to take place of these guys that have endorsed this stuff to this level to cause the loss of American lives. Let's be very clear what the price is here. This cost American people's lives. The officers who had this guy should be high on the list for removal when we get a new Secretary of Defense. Plain and simple.
Blaine, you're not wrong, but I think we need a larger re-examine of our entire interaction with the Muslim world. So like I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I basically said, "Hey, here's the problem. You've got 90% of Muslims out there that are just doing their thing. They're farmers, they're teachers, they're whatever it is. They are just normal people that happen to live in a country that is Muslim. They don't want to go on some sort of global crusade, but they are perfectly fine living their daily life in their country. To the extent that they do that, they are complicit in Muslim culture. It's that large. It's the billion Muslims in the world that create the 10% or so that are radical enough to want to travel overseas and kill people and do things to subjugate other religions. And that's the piece that we have to reconcile with. And ultimately, when my brain goes down the rabbit hole of how you solve that problem, it's not a pretty sight. It's like Tom Crapeman level of kind of desert called peace type you know, uh, mentality is where I end up going with this. But we've been talking a little bit about this lately, Joe, relating to potential threats. But now we have a perfect example of the actual threat here in the streets of America. So what are we going to do about it?
So there's a couple of pieces in this that do indicate some sort of a network and some sort of a more organized campaign. First of all, he didn't just decide to declare allegiance to ISIS out of nowhere. So he has to have some contacts with someone somewhere. And his radicalization happened. If you look at his photos from LinkedIn versus his current driver's license, you will see the progression of radicalization. So there's something else there. The other piece of it is the one firearm, the 308 that he has, is apparently stolen out of New Jersey. And this guy himself was buying and selling guns online. So he's legally allowed to purchase firearms. So why would he have a stolen firearm? That tends to point towards some sort of a network. There's a network that Matt and I talk a lot about called Al Fuqra. It's led by Sheikh Jelani out of Pakistan. They have a lot of properties in the Houston area and a lot of properties in New Jersey. So there is some potential there to a Pakistani cleric named Sheikh Jelani. The other piece is this vehicle. And I know everyone tells me that this piece has been debunked, but the initial reporting that came from local PD, not the FBI, was that this vehicle was on the cameras crossing the border 2 days ago. A little later in the day, the FBI comes out and says, no. That was in November. First of all, hey, I don't know who needs to hear this, but the FBI has been known to lie to cover things up. I'm just throwing that out there. So we need to have an answer on that.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
Yeah, and they say, well, the car was a rental through this app. Okay, but how long does it take someone to drive from Houston, Texas to New Orleans? And can someone have had that car, a different person had that car 2 days ago versus now? Maybe not. And then somebody else tells me, well, he was not the driver of that car when it crossed the border. That means nothing. If he's part of a network, he probably wasn't the driver. So you have to ask all these questions. There is way more to find out about this, and that's why we normally stick to the 48-hour rule. But I think that there is more to this. The fact that there is still a state of emergency in Louisiana tells me that they know there to be a network. Watcher, talk about that. Throw up that tweet you just clicked in there, and let's talk about that for a minute.
Which one? Oh, this.
The one about the
Yeah.
FBI showing up at the house, right?
Yeah.
So news media has been at the house in Houston all day, and the FBI didn't show up till 1. I do know that the FBI did order someone out of the house at gunpoint. This reporter claims they didn't, but they did. I've actually seen the video of it. Another news drone has it on video. But what took them so long to get there? You have 2 different field offices. It's not like a guy drove from New Orleans there, right? You just pick up the phone and you say, hey, hit this guy's house and hit it now. If we honestly were trying to catch some real evidence. So I just think this is an interesting point.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Blaine.
Well, I think the thing that threw me off, Joe, with the whole thing about going to Mexico, because they tried to debunk it and go, well, it wasn't a big deal. You don't know. I remember Oswald going down to Mexico City too, and that turned out to be a bigger deal over time. We don't know what he was doing down there, and that seems like a very strange place to go. Prior, a month prior, or just over a month prior to executing a major terror attack. Who was he going down there to meet? Who was he going down there to get supplies from? Why? Who made that trip? If it wasn't him, and how are they related to each other? There's a whole lot of questions there. I don't think, and the reason I voted against the 48-hour rule is we still don't have a manifesto from Tennessee and the shooting that took place there. We have no conclusion whatsoever on either one of the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And one of those was 6 months ago. Okay, coming up on 6 months. And if you think you're going to get any answers out of this FBI under the Biden administration, that they're going to tell you, here's what's going on, they will not do it. It's not going to be like what you saw on Patriot Day, where everything was made open and everything was played out in the open. They're not going to do that. They're going to keep everything a secret. They are going to hide this from you. It's going to take a new administration to bring it out. You're not going to get any more information tomorrow morning than we have right now. You're going to get a nugget or two at most.
Yeah.
Remember the drone thing all disappeared?
We
just let that go.
Shocking how and with no real resolution at all.
No resolution, no closure. Nobody said, by the way, we found
Well,
out it was Bob who was flying a drone in New Jersey, and here's his drone. Here's Bob. We charged him, with $1,000 fine or whatever. None of that happened. We have been conditioned over and over again to allow these crimes to take place and get zero information back as the public, and that needs to change.
Well, they'll be as open as they
all
were
right.
about
So
the
I
Las
want to.
Vegas attack.
Nice one, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, don't depress me any more than I already am, Joe. Real quick, I want to kind of go off of what Joe was saying about there being a network behind this guy. This is based on some reporting, here on X. Let's see. Yeah, so the handgun and the 308 rifle both reported stolen from New Jersey. At least one improved IED was found in the truck. Let's see, the truck used in the attack was traced back to be crossing the border at Eagle Pass. So he's been into Mexico recently. It was rented via an online service that allows renting of privately owned vehicles. There's some speculation that the Lightning was chosen because it weighs over 6,000 pounds and would be particularly dangerous. Yeah, it's an EV too, which, the EVs are known to have very quick acceleration. So if you were choosing a car for an attack where your acceleration is key, I think an EV makes a lot of sense. The attack follows a pattern of recent Christmas market attacks in Germany, so it kind of goes back to an established pattern with other globally connected terror. Let's see, he was an Army veteran. We talked about that already. Let's see, New Orleans City Council President Helen Moreno and the FBI both stated that he did not act alone and that the police were hunting for 4 to 5 additional suspects. He may have rented a short-term apartment nearby with additional IEDs found at that location. Evidently, the FBI is working to neutralize those devices. That was earlier. Now, one of the things we talked about, the Sugar Bowl being delayed. Now, here's the thing: if they think he has a network, then maybe that's the reason why. If he's dead and he's doing it by himself, then there would be no threat to the Sugar Bowl.
Well, the reason for the Sugar Bowl thing is
this
two
goes.
IEDs were found there. They detonated them in place.
Yeah.
And he had the detonator on him when they found it. So that's how they knew there were more than what he had.
Well, yeah. Well, a detonator was found on him. Did they confirm that it was to those weapons?
There were more than one. I may be saying more than I should, but there were more than one on him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to point out too, and I know you noticed this too, Scott. We haven't talked about it, but the camouflage pattern he was wearing and the helmet the helmet he had were of a British pattern, and the helmet appeared to be British. So that's an interesting twist. I don't know where he got that.
Yeah.
So.
Watcher, can you play the? Let's see, it's on the show notes. The Senator Kennedy clip.
Just a final question here for not just people in Louisiana that are watching, but people coast to coast that are watching tonight. Are you getting the sense that there's any threat of any other potential attacks tonight on any other major cities?
I can't answer that. I can, but I won't.
Is New Orleans safe tonight?
Yes, but we're still in the process of tightening up security. We're still in the process of doing everything that we possibly can. The governor's called out the National Guard. We've got more FBI coming. We've got Homeland Security people. We've got state troopers who've done an awesome job. We've got the NOPD. We're doing everything we can. But like I say, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's accurate.
Okay. Just a final question here for...
Okay, so that's... Blaine, you're used to this kind of flack kind of flackification of an answer without an answer. I mean, how do you read into that?
Well, I think he answered it by saying, I can't answer that. He actually made his answer right then and there. It's, clearly there's a threat in other cities, which means this guy was operating, as part of a group or a cell. They know it. I think Trump knew it because Trump right off the bat posted early on in this saying, hey, this is tied to poor immigration at the border and other problems that we've had in terms of our country. And it turns out, this guy had already crossed the border at some point, or at least the vehicle did with someone else in it. I think Kennedy answered that by not answering it. We haven't heard anything from ISIS. Bear in mind, we haven't heard anybody from Syria going, hey, we had nothing to do with this. We're against this. We want to have better relations with the U.S. Nobody's saying anything because they know the bombs could drop once Trump's in office. While Biden's in office, nothing's going to happen. He sent all our ammunition to Ukraine.
Well, I mean, we've seen what happens under the Biden administration. I mean, let me just kind of back up here. Under the Biden administration, record number of people from the terror watch lists has been encountered at the border. We know for a fact there are active cells of multiple terrorist groups, specifically some linked to ISIS within the U.S. The Super Bowl is going to be in New Orleans in February. So while this is earlier, you'd think, well, logically, if this happens in New Orleans, then they're going to increase the security around the Super Bowl. Well, who knows, right? Is this a test run on maybe some of the other public events that might be located around the Super Bowl? You never
or the
know
inauguration.
Well, I guarantee you
or the inauguration, it could be anywhere.
That the Sugar Bowl was less protected than the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl gets designated as a national security special event, which enables a whole lot of security measures that would otherwise be unlawful for the government to partake in. So this is just an easier target, I think. So entirely possible.
Watch, I dropped a link in the private chat. So there's, I've asked the chat over on our the fan group over on X. I've asked them to kind of drop things that we may not have covered that you'd like to see us talk about, and I thought this was an interesting one. So apparently, this is from the mosque and the New Orleans terrorists came from. So basically, it says here that it's known as a bad mosque, and apparently they decided they want CARE speaking for them and not to cooperate with law enforcement. Very interesting. Not surprising at all, Joe, but definitely interesting.
Is this the one in New Orleans or the one in Houston?
Let's see. I don't see where it says where it's located at. Is it the one in Houston?
Okay. Houston's the one he's a member of, and
So that's the one.
Okay. I see the question, Stevie, what is a bad mosque? I think a better question is, what is a good mosque? Anywho, I've been in some mosques in Detroit that qualify definitely as bad mosques. We actually had an FBI agent killed in one. But if the mosque says we're not going to cooperate with law enforcement, that's a problem. That tells you something about the culture within that mosque. So,
not only that, I would be putting all of those people, every single member, on a terror watch list at this point. The United States has been attacked. American citizens have been attacked. If they're not going to cooperate with law enforcement, answer even some basic questions,
and listen,
they're being told not to do that. I'm sorry, you guys are now part of the problem.
They can say it's targeting all they want, but if this guy was a Catholic and he went to Opus Dei meetings, right, the extreme Catholics, they would be talking to those people too.
Yeah.
Right? They're not being singled out.
No. Joe, I think when it comes to bad mosques and terror watch list and all this kind of stuff, You know, there's no excuse why they're not rolling people up. If they were doing it, not just like talking to them, but like literally going out and doing 48-hour detainments, for questioning, and if they're illegally in the country, then you could deport them right then and there. It's like, well, this guy's on our radar. Well, now's the time when you go and find some of those guys that are on your radar and you actually roll them up and you take some proactive police work.
Well, it's the scene from The Usual Suspects. You round
Yeah.
up the usual suspects and interrogate them. I think the thing that's going to bother me the most, and you guys all know we're going to be facing this tomorrow, is when the members of the squad come out and go, we got to be careful. We don't want an anti-Muslim backlash in this country. And that's going to be the rallying cry. And that's where the administration's head is. So they're going to take a very lax approach to this because we don't want to look like we're picking on these people. And that's going to be the approach that they take. Every time that there's been a terrorist attack, the left takes the stand of, but don't say anything bad about these people. Same thing with the trans shooters and stuff. It's the exact same playbook. You can't see anything bad about trans people because of this, because that's anti-trans. And
Meanwhile, white veterans are always evil and always a potential risk. But this also comes on the backdrop of U.S. Representative Sri Thandahar of Michigan warning us about Hindu phobia, which is like not a thing. You just made that word up. That has never in life existed. But
Similar,
whatever.
to how
You're right. They are going to try and play the Islamophobia card. But I like to point out something here. A phobia is an irrational fear. It is not irrational to fear Muslim terrorism. It's not irrational at all.
Yeah, and so harassing Muslims. Well, you guys all know, if you've been listening to this show for any amount of time, I am not a paint with broad brush kind of guy. I believe in treating people as individuals, and probably 25% of the non-native Muslims that live in the United States probably, you could find a very good rationale to literally detain 25% of the male Muslims in the United States, especially the ones that are here either illegally and or on some sort of a visa from another country. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Situation in Vegas right now too. I don't know if that's related.
There is. It's a guy barricaded on a bus.
Yeah, Watcher, if you could just kind of monitor that, we could maybe talk about that. Since we are already talking about terror in Vegas, if there's something to that that's beyond.
Well, let's be honest. That's a typical afternoon in Vegas. Okay.
Come on now, Flynn.
It's a hellhole of a city, and so let's be honest.
No. He's not a hostage. He just owed us a little bit of money.
Yeah,
that's right. All right. So I wanted to read. There's certain people that you listen to in times like this that have a certain amount of experience with these types of things. And while I'm not one of these guys who worships the ground that General Mike Flynn walks on, I think he's got some salient points here I'd like to bring out. Because this is a guy who's actually been there and done that and knows a little thing about Muslim Islamic terrorists. And unlike many of the people who have had stars on his shoulders, he actually has a pretty good head on his shoulders when it comes to being able to accurately discern what a legitimate threat to the United States is. And so let me read here what he says. The idiots in the FBI don't want you to call this a terrorist attack. That's what it is. Now that we're past that, the most important aspect that we are not being, that is The most important aspects are what is not currently being reported. The White House is telling the mayor of New Orleans to stop calling it a terrorist attack after the mayor said it was. Why? The media needs to pin them down. What was known. Again, it's not what you call it in the end that matters. It's what matters is if there was intelligence prior in some agency or department and it wasn't acted upon. This is kind of goes back, Joe, to what we were saying. All these guys that are on their watch, that are on the radar right now. Now is the time that you roll those dudes up. The failure was decision making, not a failure of intelligence. Prevention is what we shoot for. This is what the hard work of intelligence does. If you don't follow it and hunt down every lead, then you end up in a reactive, after the fact mode, which is exactly where we're at right now. This tragically is where we are for what should have been a very joyous occasion. Members of my family were walking along Bourbon Street last night at midnight. Another big question is what's next, and are the people with knowledge rapidly cross-leveling intelligence to prevent the next attack? And God help anyone inside our current government or anyone who used to be in our government still working with the elements inside that have any knowledge of these events. And have said or done nothing. This knowledge will be discovered and appropriate action will be taken. And then, of course, he tags Pat Bondi, Kash Patel, Real Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Dan Scavino. It does my heart good to know that if we do get a transition of power, there are going to be some people with some fairly level heads looking into this, not only to these types of events so that Americans on the street are more safe, but also into the just complete malaise and incompetence that we've been seeing within, the intelligence world. So, this thing just frustrates the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Well, the part that drives me nuts is we're never really going to know what happened and why or anything else. It's not going to be made public. They have gotten away with sweeping this stuff under the rug. Now that may change with Trump coming into power. I certainly hope that's the case. But the level of transparency right now in our law enforcement and intelligence communities is a joke.
Well, at the same time, last night there was a stabbing in Italy, and there was another attack in Germany, I believe, another stabbing attack. So, is it a coincidence or is it a campaign? Don't know.
Right. Let's. What else do we have here on this one? So there was some interesting information about the traffic barriers. Let's see. What does it say here about those?
Well, the traffic barriers were moved, but it's because there was a delivery being made, so he followed the delivery truck in.
So these barriers were put up to prevent exactly this kind of attack.
Well, those look like legit vehicle barriers there.
Yeah, I know that intimidates the hell out of me.
I think they are those. What is it? The pneumatic, like steel. The lifting ones is what I saw pictures of. So those are vehicle. Yeah.
This is going to change a lot of public events because they're going to have to take a much tighter look at perimeter security. And to Joe's point, the Super Bowl is a huge event, but it's not just the game. It's at every hotel in a 4-county area. And in any one of those places could be a potential place where somebody could commit an attack like this.
Yeah. Well, I want to get a little further afield since we're still on the Muslim terror attack, because the other terror attack does not present itself as Muslim terror the way this one does. We've seen some recent reporting about potential of coordinated Muslim terror attacks on the homeland in recent months. Joe, I mean, ever since 9/11, we've been kind of worried about another wave of attacks, and we've had some onesies and twosies here, but nothing that has been really coordinated. That's the kind of the fear, right? Is that we're waiting for that shoe to drop, and that a lot of things are going on in the world that makes us think that that we might be seeing that shoe to drop in the near future. No.
Well, yeah, and I think that as I pointed out on Twitter, that if this does not convince you to be armed everywhere you go and to take a first aid kit with you everywhere you go, I don't know what else will. I was going to say this earlier when a vehicle was running through that crowd. You know what would have prevented such loss of life last night? Armed citizens.
Yeah.
But in most states, you can't carry a firearm in bars or in an area like that if you are drinking. So never put yourself in that situation and be there. As our friends at Shield Arms say with their motto, ante omnia armari. Before anything else, be armed.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and a lot of this too is the time that this took place was very interesting. Joe, you and I were talking about this. You wanted to really rack up a body count, for New Year's Eve. You do it at midnight or right after midnight or just before midnight to do this type of attack. This person waited for the right opportunity to get in. That didn't present itself until 3:15. Those streets would have been a hell of a lot more packed. Those sidewalks would have been filled with people if he had struck earlier. So I'm curious, when we do get information, if we ever do, how many times did this guy drive around this area, checking the security, waiting, looking and probing for the right opportunity to get in there?
I think too, though, the other side of that coin is that this was a premature attaculation. I think that this guy already had his bomb set for the next day, and he probably would have had a far more spectacular attack. But something made him decide, I have to do it right now. And that's probably fanaticism, right? I'm ready now. I need to do something. That's the same thing that happened there in Fargo, North Dakota earlier in the year with the jihadist who was on his way to attack the fair, gets caught up behind a traffic accident and decides, okay, well, I guess this is what I've got. I'm going to shoot at this cop and this woman on the side of the road, and ended up getting killed before he could harm anyone else.
Yeah.
People try to apply logical thinking to people who are doing things that are illogical already and nonsensical. It's not normal to go out and drive over people. It's not logical to do that. So we can't apply logical thought process to him. Like, why didn't he do it at midnight versus 3? He took the chance he had and went in. And there's the thing about his courage going away too, right? He might have said, look, I can't, if I maintain this level of stress between now and the Sugar Bowl, I'm not going to make it. I got to do something now. So he took an okay shot as opposed to his best shot, which would have been waiting for the Sugar Bowl to start.
Watcher, can you play the video there at the X chat? This is from the Sean Ryan show. So this is a lot of you guys in the chat had asked us when this interview came out, hey, when are you guys going to talk about the Sarah Adams interview? And we've mentioned it. But ultimately what she was saying is it's kind of like what we say, right? Joe doesn't have any knowledge of a specific attack that's going to occur in the near future, but Joe is a pretty smart guy and he has a lot of experience and he can prognosticate. And you get to hear that all the time on our show. Well, Sarah Adams is the same way, right? If she's coming on Sean Ryan, she's talking about general knowledge, kind of conclusions that anybody could theoretically draw. That being said, I think, when things intersect and reality occurs, this proves her to be very accurate. And if what she says doesn't scare the living shit out of you, I don't know what else will. So let's go ahead and just listen to this clip, because this could have been way worse than what it was.
We have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on in the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now. You don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fideian attackers. So the concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead. We think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombers just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests. And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed.
You just rephrase that. So these guys are trained and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes, and that matters, right? So I was watching this video and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. The bomber blew up and then everyone starts moving in. The first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic. But if Americans don't understand this as a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death, think about that. Battle's going on. The attacker surrenders. He might have the suicide vest. You know, we let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's going to fight till he dies or you dies. So we can't let our guards down, and they know our weakness. So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
Yeah. And so this just goes to show, I mean, Joe, this could have been so much worse than it was.
It could have been. And we don't know that it's not going to be.
Right.
Right. You're going to have to give this 48 hours to see if anything else shakes out. So.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Joe. I mean, essentially, I think 48 hours and it wouldn't be a coordinated attack at that point. You know, the whole coordination piece is to have multiple attacks within a very short period of time. Blaine, I know you said you're going to get out of here. What at the 10:30? Is that my understanding? All right. I want to make sure we maximize your time. You know, just from a writer standpoint, these Fedayeen attacks is what she was kind of getting at. These are these guys, and this guy kind of falls to me, Joe, in this pattern because he had those guns. He was ready to shoot it out after the vehicle portion of his attack was over, but it looks like the cops were able to take him out early on. Blaine, just from like a narrative standpoint, from you know, these attacks could get really, really hairy, I think.
Yeah, well, we've got these major events coming up. You've got not only a Super Bowl, and the one I keep stressing is the inauguration. Inaugurations in DC is going to be, you know, a major potential target, and you know, you've got now multiple world leaders that may be there on the stage at Trump's inauguration. So that's actually going to increase this even more as a potential target.
Yeah.
This is, you know, if I'm doing this, you write that these things are all connected and that there's a greater plan. As a writer, you love going at that large. You grab the big ball and run with it. That's the old Clancy style stuff. But in the real world, this doesn't happen. It's kind of like when we were talking about the guy who shot the president of United Healthcare. People were all screaming, "Oh, it's a professional assassin!" And really, name one professional assassin that's been caught ever. You know, we live in a world where Hollywood's telling you there's a whole bunch of John Wicks running around out there, but in real life, it's a bunch of dickless guys running around there doing stupid stuff. I would love to tell you these things are connected, and as my wife was saying today, they're doing an excellent job of doing a lot of distracting. What are they distracting us from right now? We've had a day full of it with what happened in Las Vegas and what's happened here.
Well, you know, I've said it multiple times in the past in this program. I've been saying it for years, honestly. Is my nightmare scenario is a Beslan style attack on, you know, a multi-city Beslan style attack where you've got Mumbai, right? But there's a lot of combat hardened dudes that have earned their bones over the last 10 years that could literally come from any number of conflict zones and be a major threat to and well, let's be honest, an AK-47 style AK rifle and a good amount of ammo and a couple pipe bombs and maybe some hand grenades, and they're way more than anything up to a big city SWAT team is ready to take on.
Yeah.
And if they, especially if they've got body armor and they're willing to die, it's going to make the gunfight from Heat look like a Sunday walk in the park.
Well, if you think about the Tet Offensive in '68,
Yeah.
Tet changed the entire nature of the war. It was utterly a failure at the end at a tactical level, but at a strategic level, it sapped the United States' willingness to continue in a war. You're really talking about that type of an attack where in every major city, there's an attack that takes place and it throws us off our balance. And the question is, would we unite as a people in response to that? Well, we've had nothing but division in this country. And it's been a division that's been pushed by at least one of the political parties to divide us and keep us from being united. So it's good. If you had a scale attack on that level, I don't think the American people would rally behind it like they did for Pearl Harbor, for example. They
Or
would
even
be
for
divided
9/11.
up. Yeah, or 9/11. They would be split. And if
Right.
9/11 happened today, you'd have people in Congress going, "Well, we can't say bad things about these people. We don't want to hurt their feelings." Have weakened ourselves
Well, yeah.
culturally.
Yeah, I think that's 100%
These
right. I think
types of
that's
terror.
100% spot on.
Yeah. Well, these types of terror attacks are designed for us to essentially destroy ourselves in the aftermath. To basically whittle away at the Constitution. Well, we can't have these guns, or well, we can't. We need to limit freedom of speech and figure out what people are doing. And it just all
This
these
also
kind of.
reminds me, you said that, so that tripped something in my mind. The Louisiana governor activated a company of military police that is now deployed in downtown New Orleans. I understand his reasoning, but that is a slippery slope we need to be very, very careful of, because remember the aftermath of the Boston Marathon bombing. We ordered people to remain in their homes. We searched the entire city door to door, and we used military police to do it along with the local police. That was wrong. I understand it was a unique environment, a unique situation, and we had ongoing gun battles, but we don't lock down a few million people to hunt for two men.
Well, yeah, that's close to martial law is what that is.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
What we did during the Boston Marathon investigation pushed that limit. And I think to a certain degree, I think politicians like that kind of power and they love exercising it, especially if they get away with it. And that's a little bit scary.
All right. Hey, Blaine, I know you got to go here. Yeah. I saw that you posted the bingo cards in the in the chat. Watcher, I tell you what, let's look at figuring out a way to print some of these up, and we'll send them out to some of our regulars, and we can all play Blaine's bingo game. The CFC Blaine Pardo home game on the destruction of the Western civilization. I pray no one ever has to get a bingo, but if you do, I hope it's on Blaine's cards.
Yeah, we'll send you a patch or something if you do it.
Exactly right. Well, everybody who makes a bingo gets a patch. Yeah, exactly right. All right. Hey, Blaine, I know you got to get running. Anything else you want to? I know you got tenure coming up soon. You want to talk a little bit about that? And where can people go to jump in line on that?
Look, pop on Amazon.com. I'm not going to do a big sales pitch because I'm not into that. Go on Amazon.com, look up Tenure. It's by Mike Barron and I. Mike was one of the premier writers of The Punisher back in the day. He and I co-wrote this. It's a fun book. I know Joe's been reading it and Scott's been reading it, so it's a blast. It comes out on the 7th. So,
Yeah, I've been
enjoy it. You know.
Good times.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up here. I'll put the link in the chat. Hey Blaine, I appreciate you coming on, brother, and looking forward to. We got a lot of cool stuff working here in the new year. Got new pages, by the way, from Doug of the Landed Sea. So I look forward to sharing those with you and Brent. We probably need to get together soon just to kind of talk general stuff on that. So
well, you have no idea because
another thing on the list.
Show, but he gave me the most. He gave me the most. I can't say anything yet, but he gave me the most exciting news I've had for quite a while. So
we're going to take care of Watcher.
Very cool. That's very cool.
We've named Watcher a valuable resource.
Ooh.
So, hey guys, have a great new year. Let's hope we don't have to.
Hey, Watcher, drop. Yeah.
I'll talk to you later, guys.
See ya.
Oh. I've dropped the link over there in Rumble, and Watcher or somebody, if you could drop the link in the YouTube chat. I don't have it pulled up at the moment.
You know, I'm part of the way through tenure, and it's very, very good, and it's very, very plausible. So,
yeah. For me, the hard part has been just sitting down and reading. This is the first book that I've sat down and actually read and not listened to in a long time. So it's like it's like having being here around my family and whatnot, and having just enough time to kind of get into it has been tough. But I'm about, I'd say, 2/5 of the way through it. So it's very good. And I've been looking for where Blaine and Mike's maybe, did the difference. I can't tell a difference. It all seems like written by one person. So that's always a good sign for any co-written.
Well, I'm pretty sure that most of the realism in the wokeness at the beginning comes from Blaine, right?
Yeah.
And because he experienced it, lived through it, had to deal with it. So
absolutely. And, I just really appreciate we saw some real life situations in the last 10 years that absolutely echo this. So this is not too far off on the kind of things that could really happen. Landed Sea is the graphic novel with the stompy robots. This Amazon link is the 10-year book. That's Blaine's new novel, co-written with Mike Barron. He is a kind of very famous comic book writer, famous for The Punisher, amongst other things. So definitely, it comes out on the 7th. You can pre-order it now. And it will be coming out as an audiobook as well on the 7th. So definitely check that out. All right, guys, let's move over to our other incident. So what time did the Cybertruck thing happen? Was that this morning here on the 1st?
It was this morning. Yeah.
Okay. My computer is throwing me off. My computer's got Korea time on it, so it says it's the 2nd, but of course it's not the 2nd. So clearly pretty obvious from this video here that we've got that it's fireworks, and I guess the report says it's also gasoline that was in the back. The BBC is reporting that the occupant or the driver of the vehicle was killed in the explosion. Joe, have you heard anything more about that?
I'm sorry, I was reading something.
I assume this is the body being removed under that tarp.
No, they had that tarp covering the whole truck until they got everything out of it.
Okay.
So the local police say it is actually a good thing that it was a Cybertruck because it contained the blast and directed most of it upward rather than a standard VBIED where it goes outward, right?
Yeah, it blows apart, right?
That actually limited the casualties. There were, I believe, 7 people who were injured. One is a guy who walked right by there. Is probably the luckiest man in Las Vegas. He needs to go and pull the arm on a slot machine tonight because he was standing right next to the vehicle when this went off, and he just suffered some injuries. So pretty crazy stuff.
I have to say, funny flex. Elon has said that he's pretty sure they could repair this.
Well, so I wondered about that when I saw the when I saw the body. I mean, the body doesn't look like it's been deformed at all. I mean, that because that's that stainless steel body, which is probably infinitely more robust than a standard automobile body.
Yeah, you got to think about too. Jay Clark, there was white gas in there. You have to think about too. All that concussion went into that body. Maybe none of the flame did, but all the concussion did, and that had to have just jellied the internal organs trapped inside that stainless steel vehicle.
Yeah, not a pretty. And we don't know if it was intentionally a suicide or if it detonated early. I haven't heard anything along those lines that would indicate.
I believe it was an intentional suicide. Yeah. The method of detonation, without revealing too much, indicates that the intent was to be dead. So.
I'm sorry. I just got a DM that I was reading. Okay. This one seemed kind of weird to me. Joe, talk about. I mean, I haven't seen anything that links the ownership of the truck, or I guess it was rented in Colorado Springs, is what I read somewhere. So it's a rental. It's clearly a message to both Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It's a Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel in Vegas. I mean, that indicates to me it's more of a political versus
more than an Islam one.
Terror. Yeah.
There's a question of could it have been a remote detonation? No, they have found the detonator. It was inside the truck, so it was not a remote detonation. I know that everyone likes for it to be some other grand conspiracy. Here's it was just some crazy guy.
Yeah,
conspiracies are way more fun than the truth, almost always.
The question is, with all of these leftists, right? Is it a standalone complex where it's just one guy who's consumed a lot of stupid, vile stuff from a variety of different sources, and then done something on his own, or is it somebody who's connected to one of these groups like Antifa or some other?
This is somebody wanting to have a Luigi Mangione moment, right? I don't know why though they picked Las Vegas. If you picked that up in Colorado Springs, you could have gone either way about the same distance and hit a Trump property. Could have hit one in Chicago. That's probably a little further to Chicago. But if you were going to go travel that far to hit one, though, why wouldn't you arrange it for somewhere where one of these people was at? Just weird to me.
The other thing that's interesting, Joe, is it says here that this truck was rented through the same app that the New Orleans.
But that app rents thousands of vehicles a day all over the country.
Yeah, I really doubt.
Yeah, I really doubt that there's actually a link between them other than that app. And that's like saying they both use Google to search how to make a bomb.
No, my suspicion as I'm looking into this is I am wondering if there is a commonality that it's more simplistic than we're thinking. Like maybe they accept crypto for payment, or a particular type of crypto for payment, or potentially maybe they put it on the owner of the vehicle, since it is basically an Airbnb for vehicles. Maybe that's part of how they underwrite some of what they're doing, is that they put it on the owner to verify the identity of the person, and so they think it's more secure. I think
then that rather than it being some complex thing, they use the Turo app because they don't have to show identification and fill out paperwork along with proof of insurance.
There you go. That was, that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to bring attention to this post that you had up there, Watcher. This is Elon Musk. So the first Elon Musk post was the whole Tesla senior team is investigating this matter right now. We'll post more info as soon as we learn anything. We've never seen anything like this. And then Elon then later said, we have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by a very large firework and or bomb carried in the bed of a rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. All the vehicle telemetry was positive at the time of the explosion. So that's interesting. I mean, Joe, one of the things I will say is that the unique nature of the Tesla vehicles allow them to have a lot of data from their vehicles. Now, it may not be like a camera sitting there in the cabin looking at you all the time or something like that, but it just goes to show that these internet connected, network connected vehicles, they're gonna, if you can identify the vehicle specifically, people are gonna have a lot of information about you in real time.
Yeah. And Golf 21 says, I had to upload my driver's license and insurance to run on Turo. Yes, but there is no human being physically comparing that driver's license to your face with you standing there. Yeah. So I could upload Scott's ID and rent a car.
Yeah, I think
and no one would know the difference.
I think that's exactly.
I can use anybody's identity information to rent this car.
All right. By the way, for those of you in the fan chat over on X, I'm looking through there right now to see if there's anything that we might have missed. I think we got pretty much everything that I've seen posted, or at least we talked about it. Rick and Laura are cracking me up with these memes over there. Let's see. I just want to make sure you guys have, by the way, the fan chat has been just amazing, bringing info at a pretty rapid pace. That's how I actually found out about the both of these attacks, was people posting in our fan chat. So I want to say thank you to you guys who've been doing that.
Also, thanks for the laughs, CFC.
Yeah, that's chat. What I'm saying. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. That's from Blue
I'm more
Sky.
worried that a member of our chat rented on Turo. I just want to know who he plans on attacking.
I had an oversight earlier in the show. There was a member chat, like towards the beginning of the show, it looks like, and I apologize. It says there, Phil Coggins, member for 28 months, says, on the bright side, that woman has about 18 days to find a new job. I'm not quite sure what that refers to. I apologize. It's been a while. Right. So Joe, I mean, just kind of looking back on this, we spent a lot of times talking about the RevComs and people like that. While I think the threat is higher from Islamic terrorists, I think we're coming into a window of time with the inauguration coming up on the 20th. Where the RevComs are motivated to do something before that happens, or something in coordination with that event occurring on the 20th. And we've got the January 6th coming up. That would also be a place where people could make a statement. What's your kind of take on the political motivated actors in this window coming up prior to the inauguration?
I'm going to do something I don't do it often on this show, and that is agree with Mike Shelby. And Mike knows I love him. We actually talk all the time. But he put out a report last week where he said the protests this time around against Donald Trump are going to be smaller in size because they don't have the big motivating events that they had with the George Floyd situation. But they're going to be far more violent. Because of the left feels like there's absolutely no other option here, and they're motivated by Luigi. as stupid as that is, they're motivated by the Luigi Mangione story. The fact that he's defending himself, the fact that he's acting like a hero and being seen as a folk hero by people on both sides, and they feel like he accomplished more action and change through the use of 3 bullets than they did in 20 years of protest. So I think you're going to see far more violent protests this January 20th than we saw the last time. Let me remind you all, having been involved in some security operations related to it, January 20th, the last time Donald Trump was inaugurated, had Washington, D.C. as a literal war zone. There were vehicles burned down, buildings burned out, hundreds arrested, massive millions of dollars in property damage, and a lot of folks hurt. But the media downplayed it a lot. That's where independent media really made its big come around, was during all that kind of stuff. So January 16th, January 20th, way back in 2016 or 2017, was very, very violent and dangerous, and it's going to be worse this time around.
Yeah, I get the feeling that you're right. I think the only thing that might tamp down a political response would be some sort of large international terror event. Now, they may take advantage of that kind of event for their own actions, but I get the feeling that if they did, that wouldn't be, held in any kind of high esteem by anybody.
Here's the perfect storm. Some sort of international event that morning, the inauguration begins, and mass protest violence happens, and then the lights go out and your ability to communicate. That's the perfect storm on January 20th. So that's what's on my radar. That's what's on my biggest fear list. Not that they'll actually pull anything off, but they'll make you not know what happened. And that can cause people to do silly and dumb things and create a cascade effect. So,
yeah. All right. I'm looking over in our DM chat group to see if anything's popping up. Yeah, we've seen some pretty significant political statements in the last. I'm reminded of the guy setting himself on fire. That's the kind of political dedication that I think is perhaps very dangerous. And it kind of goes to what you're saying, Joe, with that perfect storm where they're willing not to just burn themselves alive, but to actually do something that causes greater impacts to the larger system.
yes.
Yeah, and this kind of goes to some of that Luigi, pro Luigi sentiment out there. Like, hey, let's take it to the fat cats and the oligarchs. I hate to say it, but I think having a healthy debate within, the right wing movement, I think is good, but at the same time, there is a very heavy sentiment of anti-elitism in much of some of this recent H-1B protest, and ironically enough, it's my current stance is fairly anti-H-1B right now. It's more of a temporary anti-H-1B thing, and I think I explained that the other day. But the irony is that this anti-oligarch kind of sentiment is coming from people that I agree with. So it's something we have to watch out for, right? It's like me and Joe, right? Me and Joe sometimes disagree about things, but that doesn't mean I hate Joe and I don't want to work with him anymore. I just, we talk it out, we figure it out, we figure out what part of the discussion needs to happen in public, and does some of it need to happen in private. You have the hard talk, and then you move on, right? Because 90% of the things that me and Joe think, we agree. So
I'm perfectly okay with Scott being wrong some of the time.
Well, yeah, it happens. It doesn't happen very often, so take a picture when it does, because you won't see it very often. But the point is that there is a larger structural anti-elite movement that this Luigi stuff is part of, and that is also a left wing. There is a left wing class, kind of class warfare element to that as well. The left will do anything that they can to put a wedge inside of the very ascendant populist right that is happening right now. So I think that's another thing that we need to watch out for and be aware of. I think this H-1B debate has been very good, right? So Stevie J says, I learned a lot from the H-1B debate. I didn't know that a lot of companies have settled lawsuits for discriminating against Americans. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize that there were very well qualified, like computer science people that are having a hard time finding jobs because companies can't afford to pay American CS graduates what they want, and no American CS graduate will work for the very low wages they're able to pay some of these H-1B folks. Now that's clearly not the case everywhere. That American CS grads get jobs every year, but ultimately, if there's an abuse in the system, you have to figure that out, figure out what the loopholes, what's going on, and fix the system. I think that's something that can be handled, but. Guys, do we want to talk about some of the other things happening in the world? And
I want to raise one thing that Forging Freedom just put up there. Yep. Elon Musk was able to give the LVPD footage from charging stations, presumably where the VBIED fueled up. On the surface, that sounds like a great thing. That's really cool. But you need to carry that thought just a step further. Think that all the way through to the end. That's not a good thing. Sure, in this particular case, it is. But I think you should be required to be handed a search warrant for those rather than just turning them over.
Well, the interesting thing there is that if it's the pumps themselves that are where they're taking the camera footage from, that would be just the same as if they got the camera footage from a gas station. No, or is that the same thing?
How would he know where he refueled, though?
All right, so that's the connection to the Cybertruck, right? That's that network.
A Cybertruck, you're not really buying the truck; you're buying a subscription, and this is one of the dangers of modern vehicles, right? Everything on your vehicle is now going to be available by subscription. And what did Elon Musk famously do the minute that Ramzan Kadyrov took delivery of his Cybertruck?
Oh yeah,
he turned it off.
Very famously,
and he bricked his truck, and that's a very scary thing. And I don't think that any one man should have that power. If I pay for your truck, I should own your truck, and that's it. So
I agree with that. You shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have that kind of control over you. That being said, you have to. It's kind of like having an Alexa in your house, right? I wouldn't have one in my house.
Yeah.
Now I understand if people want to have Alexas in their house because they're willing to trade some freedom or whatever for that. Okay, I got it. I'm not willing to do that, but.
So if you really want to hear somebody rant about the overabundance of electronics and nanny state materials in your cars, ride with Stan for more than 3.5 minutes in his new car. He will go off without stop about it. So
he must have been reading my timeline.
All right. All right. I'm sorry. I'm going down an Amazon.com rabbit hole that I shouldn't be doing during the show. All right. I apologize. Guys, I've got a couple things that I wanted to bring. Watcher, I'll drop these links. In these, we got a little time, and this is stuff that before we had all this stuff happen, these were kind of some of the things that we were looking at talking about. So let me grab this link here, because it's never it's never a fun day until you've had a chance to talk about all the stupid stuff going on in Syria. Because it's not like there hasn't been enough stupid stuff going on in Syria. Yet more stupid stuff is happening in Syria. Joe, you know what I'm talking about here. The new rulers of Syria are making some interesting HR choices. Popping it in the private chat right now, Watcher. There it is, that Zero Hedge article. If you could give
Oh,
that
yes.
a look.
Well, you know why? Because Jelani himself is a foreign jihadist. So
That's right. Shocking that the ruler of Syria is not a Syrian. Well, but he would say, well, the Ummah is a single and contiguous, and as long as you're a Muslim, then that's all that qualifies you. Foreign jihadists have been appointed in senior positions in the new Syrian military, which is now led by HTS, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda that led the offensive to oust the former president. Syrian sources told Reuters that foreign fighters appointed to the military include Uyghurs, a Jordanian, a Turk, and an Albanian. This is a small token of recognition for the sacrifices Islamist jihadists gave to the struggle for freedom for Assad's oppression. Joe, could you imagine if we liberated, if we started in South Africa and then from South Africa moved on with the Afrikaners to liberate Rhodesia from their current oppressors, and then we took a bunch of foreign fighters, like a Brit, an American, a South African, and installed them in the positions in this new government. People would scream bloody murder and say mercenaries now run the military of this.
I think Canine Reaper would make a fine president of Rhodesia.
I enjoy the TV show you guys just pitched. I think that'd be fun.
I personally think, as far as the political wing, I feel like that would be more Gideon's line, whereas we need Canine Reaper in the security services to make sure it keeps the streets clean.
Every time we discuss that corner of the world, I feel it's my duty to remind everyone that Zimbabwe is not where it started. Rhodesia/Zimbabwe. It is North Rhodesia/Zambia. So we have to liberate all three.
Yeah. There's a lot of work that needs to be done a lot of trash that needs to be taken out. If I'm honest,
make Africa great again, right?
In fairness, the recent leaders of Zimbabwe are a damn sight better than Robert Mugabe and his ZANU-PF thugs. But that being said, it's only
US president installed Mugabe. Who was that guy?
Yeah, it was somebody who's probably not with us anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me kind of go through this again. Let's see. Kudaberdi, a commander of the Turkestan Islamic Party forces in Syria, he is a Uyghur. He stated he goals to create an Islamic state in China's western Xinjiang region. I don't know which would be worse, an Islamic state in that area or the CCP state that is currently in that area. Talk about a rock and a hard spot, Joe. I don't know which one of those I would choose.
So you have to make sure when you say Uyghur that you would enunciate clearly.
Well, yeah.
But all of these groups, the Turkestan Islamic Party, when you break it down into its parts in Arabic, it's Hezbollah. So, it's the party of God. So when you see Islamic Party, always remember that it's Hezbollah somewhere in there that means there's probably an Iranian hand in there, which is weird given HTS's public statement the other day that they are a friend to all nations, which is not true. They're not a friend to U.S. or Israel, except Iran. There might be a little subterfuge going on there.
Jashari, an Albanian fighter who was designated a terrorist by the U.S. Treasury Department, was made a colonel. HTS is still designated by the U.S. as a foreign terror organization. I'd be really surprised if they didn't change that here in the next week or two.
They plan to, and I really think that's a mistake.
Yeah, they said the U.S. has made it clear that they're willing to work with the new government and its de facto leader, Giuliani, who has been going by his real name, Ahmad al-Sahara. Earlier this month, Barbara Leaf, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, met with Giuliani and announced the U.S. was removing a $10 million bounty from his head.
The only reason why he changed his name is he doesn't want his name as the president of Syria on a U.S. wanted poster. That's why he changed his name.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something he could say. Well, I've left the fight behind. Essentially, is what he wants to try to say with that. When in fact he has done nothing of the sort.
And that is completely false. Anytime you're talking with an Islamic extremist, the fight is not left behind until all of the Jews are dead and all of the Christians are subjugated.
Yeah, very good. Right. Let's see. I just wanted to bring that up since we had a little time here at the end of the show. There were a couple other things that I had found. Have you guys heard about how essentially the Biden administration is emptying the coffers of the United States military here at the end of the year? I don't know if you've seen this or not. It's discouraging.
The only thing I saw about it was a few more billion going to Ukraine, which was the least surprising news in the world.
Well, that's true. On the way out the door, Biden is emptying the coffers. Over the last 250 years, political gamesmanship, both parties have played year-end games into the arms of the new incoming administration. In the early 2000s, incoming George Walker Bush team discovered that every keyboard in the White House was missing the W key. Outgoing Clinton staff had removed all W keys to annoy the new administration after an extremely contentious election. The damage was small, estimated at $15,000. That's a lot of keyboards, if I'm honest. But the bigger message here is that the party that runs the White House changes. The outgoing administration will leave some proverbial time bombs for their successors. It's almost like they are looting the treasury before they leave town. Basically what they're doing is they're open the spigots to max out every penny going out the door that's been appropriated for this quarter of the budget.
The Clintons were literally ordered to bring back dishes and stuff they stole. So
that's exactly right. I thought that was so funny. Let's see. Spending for 2025 is expected to exceed $2 trillion by the time Biden leaves D.C. on January 20th. This is over the 30% of the annual budget, and Trump will have to cut spending for the rest of the year to stay within the limits of the allocated budget. This could mean a notable slowdown in GDP growth in the first quarter of 2025. And it talks about how bonds have taken notice. I don't want to get into like the whole bond market thing, but this is not good. And then, on top of that, we've talked about the fact that they're transferring a lot of U.S. weapons right here at the end to, the Ukrainians. And we've seen some key cities either come under threat in Donetsk, in the Donbass, or come close to being encircled. Joe, you think that we're going to see any big moves in Ukraine prior to inauguration, or is it just going to be that kind of incremental, kind of creeping death that we've seen?
If we do, the big moves will be by the Russians, not by anyone else. The Ukraine is doing the best it can to hold on to what it has, and it's failing at that. So I don't see anything big. Ukraine may make a big show of some type of a missile strike, but that's about it. No actual ground changes at all, other than Russian incrementalism, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. Joe, Watcher, anything else we need to talk about today? That's about all I got for this show. This has just been a kind of a nutty day. So
let me talk like 30 seconds about tactical wisdom.
Yeah.
So since it's a new year, you're going to see a lot more content migrating its way over to locals. YouTube is not a way to make money, so I'm going to put all of that content over on locals. So if you want access to those exclusive things, check it out. I'm going to be doing a review over there. No hunch, not dog sledding. Stop it. I'm going to be doing a review over there comparing the new Baofeng AR5 radio with the Baofeng UV5R, the original. And I just got some extended batteries for this AR5. It's basically taking that AR152, Scott, that you and I have, and the UV5R, the original one, and smashing them together, and you come out with this middle of the road radio that's got the look of the old classic Baofeng, but the power of the other one. So it's kind of neat. We did take advantage of the events of today to up our communications plans here. So there's now a repeater installed here at the camp. So anyone who comes out here to a class, we have our own radio network for people on the class. So good stuff in the class. So there's no spots in the woods for about a 5-mile radius where you can't reach the main camp. So kind of good. Guy gets out there and gets turned around. He can call for help, and I'll be able to hear him. But
that'd be good.
Yeah, watch for some more articles to start coming out on tacticalwisdom.com. Spent a few days taking some time off, but there'll be a lot more there. And the book will continue to advance. We'll get more books out this year than we have in previous years. But I do ask you all to recommend to your friends they buy a set of the books. I know you all already have them, but the more books that you guys can sell, the more things and content I can provide. So tell your friends to buy my books, please.
Hey, Joe, real quick, let's talk about winter preparedness. A lot of people, in this neck of the woods where I'm at right now, are getting ready to have a big cold snap. They're saying potentially, in the minus, 10-degree range for areas of the South that, I've seen things where you guys in Montana are going to have higher temperatures than some of the places here in the in the middle of the country. What do you suggest for people who don't normally get those kind of temperatures to kind of be ready for?
Always carry some sort of a sleeping bag in your car. If your car breaks down, you're going to be able to be a little bit warmer with a sleeping bag than without. Preferably a all-weather one. Have cold weather gear with you when you go somewhere. I know it's not popular to throw on your long underwear and 2 extra layers when you're just driving into work, but have them available. I keep mine in a backpack in the car because you never know what's going to happen. You might slide off the road. You might need that. But in general, during the short time frame of this cold snap, I would try to do as much as I could remotely. I would try to not leave the house as much as I can. But more important than you and your preparedness, think about your dogs and your pets, right? If you let your dogs out to go to the bathroom during that cold weather, think about that. Try to keep it limited. Try not to let them linger out there. They're not as smart as you. They might try to stay out longer than they should. But I also recommend making sure that you have a whole bunch. Hey, B-Hops, that's because it's tactical-wisdom.com. Anyway, make sure that you have power banks and have them powered up and ready to go so you still have electricity should your power go out. And one of my personal favorites is the Mr. Buddy heater. It's a propane heater that is safe for indoor locations.
Yes.
Having that and a bunch of propane will help you. I know, Watcher, you're a big fan of that too, right?
Love them. Yep.
Love them. Yeah, you got to have some of that stuff and be ready for that.
It's like not intended. However, if you get the medium-sized one, you can actually cook on top of it with a pot. So.
Well, you can if you want to, yeah. But having something like that, and look, if power goes out in your house, consolidate everyone down into one room, animals included, and that will raise the ambient temperature in that room. Try and spend all your time in there.
As far as kind of on the road preps, like I always say that, having an extra whoopee is not a bad thing. Whoopies do a great job of deflecting the wind as well as retaining heat. But
Mhm.
if you don't want to have a whoopee in your car, because you're never going to use it or something like that, consider like an old school army wool blanket. Wool blankets are
I
great
have
because
several of them.
they
Yep.
work great even when they're wet, which is something that happens a lot of times in the winter. So consider just having an old army wool blanket in your trunk. Another thing that I like to keep, and it's super easy to throw in the bottom of a backpack, are is the military silk weight, long underwear.
Silkies, yeah.
Yeah, those things are absolutely money.
Swivel
Um,
gear, as we call it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that you generally don't wear when you're doing stuff out in the wood line and things like that. But it's something that if you're going to be sitting around in a
It's
cold
good for static
environment,
locations, absolutely.
exactly right. So just kind of
Uh,
it's really small and easy to pack away.
and
Also,
B
those
Hups
hand
nails it.
warmers
Said
are a
wool
good thing
everything.
to have
Listen,
around.
I have the world's largest collection of military wool sweaters from around the world. And there's a reason for that because they are fantastic sweaters for the wintertime to have around. And I know that Stan, I'm pretty sure the other day, was wearing a prototype of the one that's going to come out for Mountain Partisans. So watch for that.
Derna says, Scott, the correct term is the itchy green blanket. Absolutely. I remember thinking that when I was a
So
kid.
that's why what you do is you put the wool blanket between your poncho and your poncho liner, and you don't have to worry about it. You get the insulating properties, and it's there. That gives you a 3-season sleeping bag. If you throw a casualty blanket in there, it gives you a 4-season sleeping bag.
Well, absolutely. All right. Anything else on the winter stuff? Joe, you got an article coming out? I think that might be pretty timely if you have something you could
I
throw
already
up
did
on
a
the
winter one the other day, but I might do another one, an added one for the extreme cold weather. That's a great point. I will do that in the next 24 hours.
Okay. Pardon me. Sorry. Yeah, they're saying it's going to be real snowy down here in the south. I guess Saturday and Sunday. So if you're down this way, make sure you keep an eye out and you kind of watch the weather. Make sure that you're ready for whatever happens. Watcher, any final words for the folks?
No, just thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. That's all I've got here, unless Joe or Watcher has something. I appreciate you coming in for the kind of I don't want to say
You know
special
what?
coverage, but this is not the kind of thing we normally do.
I
Joe,
did have
what were
one
you
more
gonna say?
thing. I wanted to remind everybody something. I'm sorry. January 18th, 19th, Ground Rod 2 here at Camp Ponderosa. And if you want cold weather training, just come to Camp Ponderosa in the winter. It's sort of pass fail. You will learn as you go. And I'll be doing a stick and knife combatives class on January 17th here. So come on out, man. Hang out in Montana with us.
Yeah, even in the winter, it's beautiful.
That's gorgeous.
How's the road out there, by the way?
You know what? The
Is that main
highway
road
is
safe?
perfectly clear. But Yogi had to plow our road here with the tractor, and he did a pretty darn good job. But the highway here, I've never had it past 10 a.m. be covered in snow. They're
Oh,
pretty
that's
good about
crazy.
it.
That's great. Yeah. All right. That's all I've got for today. So thanks you guys for being here. If you haven't done it already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for notifications. Let people know that you're getting some good info here on the Council on Future Conflict.
8
And as
p.m. Friday or 9
always,
p.m.
I think we'll probably do same time on Friday, so 9 p.m.
9 p.m. All right.
Yep. All right, guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you on Friday. And as always, stay safe.